Good morning, students. Today we will see the third unit. Third unit is approaches to curriculum construction. Characteristics of an effective curriculum organization. So if you want your curriculum to be an effective one, then you should organize the curriculum in a proper way. So there are some characteristics that you should follow while you are organizing the curriculum. First thing is learnable. So what is learnable? The curriculum should be learnable. For example, there are different topics, and some topics you maybe arrange them in a chronological order. Sometimes you will have to give it in a topical approach. You have to follow some topical approach. So, and you should also cater the needs of the students' age group and their interest and their ability. So it should be learnable. The curriculum should be learnable so that the children can learn and it will be useful for their life. Second thing, smooth and continuous progress from grade to grade. So there should be a continuity from one grade to another grade. So you should organize the curriculum in such a way that the children should feel that I have studied in last year, so now I am learning it. So it should have a smooth and continuous progress from grade to grade. So vertical coordination should be there. Next is horizontal correlation. So horizontal correlation means that there should be a relationship among the different subjects. So learning of history may sometimes will help you to learn some literature in Tamil. So there should be an horizontal correlation. And sometimes when you are learning geography, it will help you to learn science, isn't it? Okay. Next is balanced. So there should be a balance between the curriculum, the knowledge that is provided by the curriculum, and the contemporary affairs, that is day-to-day happenings. So there should be a balance. It's not that when you are learning history, you are learning the old things. So there should be balance between the subject matter, content matter, and our current affairs. Okay. Next one is flexible. The curriculum should not be so rigid, and it should have some room for current and local developments. So you should be able to utilize the current and local developments, and you can use it as an example to teach the children. The next one is complementary repetition. So there should be a repetition. There should be repetition so that the child feels that psychologically and pedagogically the child feel that the child has learnt it. So it should have addition. So when you are learning something, for example, in the earlier classes or lower classes, the child learns what is industry. When the child goes to the next level, the child learns the different types of industries. And another level, the child learns how the industries are classified. So there should be a complementary repetition. So complementary here means you should have additional facts, new viewpoints, and refresh generalization. Okay. So the curriculum should be repeated, and in every repetition the child should get additional information. Okay. So next is transfer of learning. You know what is transfer of learning? So when you are learning something new, it will help you to learn another new thing, isn't it? So the earlier thing that is you learned will help you to learn the new concepts. So here and the topics should be arranged so that the transfer of learning takes place in a smooth way. The next one is catering the individual differences. So the curriculum can be arranged to make contributions towards the problem of individual differences. So there are individual differences among the children. It should help the child to learn it according to their needs. So catering to individual differences. major approaches to curriculum organizations. There are different approaches for curriculum organizations. So we are going to see 6 approaches. First one is correlational approach, integration approach, topical approach, unit approach, concentric approach, and spiral approach. We will see correlation approach. Before I explain you what is correlation approach, I would like to give you an example. In history, you are teaching about the Sangam age. So you know what is Sangam age? You remember? Yes. So you are going to teach about Sangam age. So while you are teaching the Sangam age, you can take some examples, some subject matter from the Tamil language, Tamil literature. So about Avvaiyar, you can teach Sangam age, the poet, the great women poet Avvaiyar. So you can take some subject matter from Tamil. So for example, another example, while you are teaching geography, you are teaching about plant life, you can take some information from science, botany. You can take some information from botany and you can correlate the subject matter to geography. Okay, so now hope you, based on this, you keep in mind the examples that I gave you. Based on that, you go through this characteristics. So first one, interrelating of subjects. So there is an interrelation between the subjects. So correlation approach makes use of interrelating of subjects, and it does not need any formal plan. So there is no need for you to plan, or for you to when you are approaching the curriculum, making the curriculum, organizing the curriculum, you don't have to make any formal plans. The thing is, the teacher should have a wide range of information. So when you don't include it in curriculum, then how can there be a correlation approach? So here the teacher should have wide information. You should have more knowledge about different subjects, not only the social science, but the teacher should also have knowledge in different subjects. So while the teacher teaches a lesson, she can make use of other subject knowledge, and there is as she uses the information from other subjects, there is no boundary between the different subjects. The boundaries are vanished. There is no boundary between history and Tamil, isn't it? So the teacher should have a wide range of information. The next one, the teacher should be sensitive to similarities, differences, and relationships. The teacher should have when to use, what to use, from where to use. The teacher should have the sensitive to similarities, that is similarities between the subjects, different subjects, and the differences and relationship. And you should have in mind that each subject provides its value to other subjects. So for example, only when you learn a language, this language knowledge will help you to learn other subjects, isn't it? So each subject provides its value to other subjects. Integration approach. So before we go into what is integration approach, we will see one example. So in a classroom, social science class, you are giving one project to your students, a group project to your students. So the topic is the election. So you are giving the topic election, and you are asking your children to do a project on the theme election. Now the children go and get information from different sources, maybe from internet, from parents, and from library. So they get information. So based on that information, they prepare the project. In that project, so what is now, when the children are writing the project, they learn the language. it may be a social science project, but they learn the language, so how to write. And when they present the project, they speak out the project. They are telling about the project, so they learn to speak the language. Okay, so here it is a social science project. So while they are doing this project, they simultaneously they learn the language. The second thing, so when they are writing about the election, they use some basic statistics. So for example, how many constituencies are there, and how many parliamentary MP seats are there, how many MLA seats, legislative assembly seats are there. So they learn here. Their children make use of their mathematical or arithmetic knowledge. So here the arithmetic knowledge, and they do some calculations. So they learn mathematics. And so they are doing the social science project. Simultaneously they learn what is something from maths. And the children also learn from civics what is who is a citizen, and how many constituencies are there, how the election is being held. So they learn civics. And then they also learn history, how the elections took place earlier. So there is an integration among the different subjects. Okay, so now we will go to what is integration approach. So based on the example, you just go through these points. So knowledge of subjects is in integrated form, so that the knowledge of different subjects is in integrated form. And children learn various subjects simultaneously. As I told you, it may be a social science project. The child learns mathematics, language, and civics, and then history. So the various subjects knowledge is learnt simultaneously. So next is as it is a project and it is child centered. When it is child centered, it is activity oriented and experience centered. Children learn by doing. So activity oriented, they are doing it. So they get more experience, and it also provides useful knowledge for real life. So while they are doing the project, they learn something that will be useful for their real life. The students' interests are taken into consideration, and it is group controlled instruction, because mostly projects are given in a group projects. So group controlled instruction is being given. It's not that only one student is getting instruction, so everyone gets the same instruction. And when the children are doing this, they not only learn the subject, they also learn some social spirit, that is team spirit. They learn to be a social being, so they learn to cooperate, adjust, help others. So it develops a team spirit and cooperation among the students. The third one is topical approach. So before we go to what is topical approach, we will see one example. So in the primary class, the children are given the syllabus like concrete and familiar things, right? Concrete means the thing that the children can see, feel, touch, and it's not abstract, which they have to imagine. It's not that imaginary thing, but what the child sees around them, isn't it? So in the primary classes, the child studies about the concrete and familiar things like food, clothing, house, and means of transport, like that. So in the middle classes, the child is introduced some difficult topics like history of institutions and history of government, and what is history and the idea of history. So the child is given some difficult topics. When the child goes to higher classes, and the topics are not concrete, they are become abstract. So so the topical approach is like the children are given the topics that according to their age group. So that topics of study makes the whole syllabus, and it is suitable for their age, ability, and interest. So the syllabus covers that is suitable for their age, ability and interest. Nature of topics varies with age, ability and interest of the children. So the topics varies with the age group, and it is worthwhile for the children of the age group of 13 and above. So you cannot use it for smaller children. It is suitable for the children with age group of 13 and above. Advantages of topical approach. So now first thing is logically deals with vast material. So you all know the social science is a vast subject, right? So here while you are using the topical approach, it is helpful for the children to learn the vast material without any stress. So because we are debating the syllabus, and according to the age group and their nature and interests, we are debating the topics and we are providing them the knowledge. So it deals with vast material. So logically it deals with vast material. It is easy for the children to learn. Next one is foothold in ancient culture. So as we are not overloading the syllabus, and we divide the syllabus into different according to their age group. So the subject matter is stretched in line, and we also teach them the ancient culture, and we maintain some connection between them here and there, because we don't leave the topic where the child has learned in the smaller classes, and we don't leave it just like that. We go deep into that in the higher classes, why they are going to higher classes. So there is a continuity or connection between the ancient culture and present culture. Third one is flexible to age, aptitude and ability. So as we are arranging the topic according to the topics according to their children age group and ability and aptitude, so it is flexible. So we can change the topics are flexible. The children learn it according to their interests. The fourth one is sense of purpose. Here the children know why they are learning and what they are learning, because it suits their age group and interest. So the children, as they are growing, they know why should we learn these topics, because they are mature enough to understand the subject matter. Next one is control and adaptation. The topical approach provides the teacher control over the subject matter and according to the various needs of the children. So the students have problem before them, and the teacher is able to solve the problem. The consequent study shows an intangible objectives, understanding of the problem in all its facts, useful in all stages. If the topics are selected wisely and the treatment is made interesting, the topical approach is very, very useful at all ages. Girls, so far we learnt the different approaches of curriculum construction, that is correlational approach, integrated approach and topical approach. Hope you understand these three approaches. In the next video I will be posting about the unit approach, concentric approach and spiral approach. And if you have any doubts, you can ask girls. Feel free to ask your doubts and keep on studying. Thank you.